Okay, let's talk about, move the camera a little. Let's talk about mystic poetry. The way to wholeness. I call it the way to wholeness because for me, being, well, I'm not a poet or a professional poet as such, but I write poetry, have been writing poetry since about 1999, I think, so nearly 25 years, yeah. It is a way of reconnecting with the inner voice. And what's the inner voice? The voice of your inner self, of the spirit, speaking through you. It's cold this morning. Speaking through you. So you have, I will read to you bits and pieces that I have written over the years, but I'll read to you a post that I posted yesterday. Someone asked me how to open the eye of the heart. And by the eye of the heart, what I mean is your intuition. And like I said so many times before, the core of feminine is intuition. Feminine is your, intuitive mind, so it's intuition and feeling. That's the feminine, and the masculine part of your brain is the rational part, which is thinking and I forget about Jung's 4 functions. Anyway, will come to me. I don't use it very much. Being an intuitive is the opposite of what I am. Anyway, so I'll read you what I posted. Well, I actually wrote this a few years ago, but I posted it again yesterday. So I'll read you what I said there about opening someone asked me about how to open the eye of the heart. In other words, how to recover your intuition, your feminine, the core of the feminine. So it says, someone asked for something practical to help open the eye of the heart. Senses, that's the other function I'm thinking about. And there's the practical side of life. So it's sensation, thinking, feeling, intuition. Intuition is right at the apex of the tree. If you're looking at like the way I arrange it, the 4 functions, Jung's 4 functions. So there's your feminine, feeling and intuition. That's the intuitive mind, the feminine half of you. And there's the thinking and senses, or your practical side of life. That's the masculine. Yeah. Anyway, so there we go. So someone asked me about the practical way to help open the eye of the heart. In other words, to recover intuition. The feminine. Reading, and I mean mystic reading, not that thinking stuff from cover to cover, but the intuitive following clues to a dream symbol or mythological image that you want to know, and which is a method of opening eye of the heart. Goes something like this. Go to the right books index and look up a reference to what you want to know. This works brilliantly if you, for instance, are really involved in this work and you're serious about doing this work, this inner work. What it does, the way I do it is I would have a dream, and I wouldn't interpret this dream what it means to me on the level of the personal unconscious, but I'll straight away go to the level of the collective unconscious. In other words, what the symbol, what the soul is saying about itself in its own archetypal or mythological language of symbols. So let's say, for instance, I had a dream about a tree, a flowering tree. I've spoken to you about those dreams before. I've shared with you, for instance, the one in the cave, the huge flowering tree, with the cave and the stream flowing out of the tree's roots, out of which I was to drink. And when the lady saw, my guide said, drink, this is where many men of old found their gold. So you see, she's saying poetry, mystic poetry. So this is the way to get there, to get to recover your intuition is write poetry that rhymes. And the cave had a center, a roof which was circular, and it was open up to there. So there's your center, there's your circle, there's the tree. So the tree, for instance, you want to know what the tree means. So don't just interpret it in your own personal ways or what you associate with it. Is you climbing the tree, or being a kid, if trees flower, trees have fruit, we need more trees and all this. That's fine, but the more important interpretation is how it relates to our mythology, the collective unconscious. So for this you would probably need books that are talking about the meaning of these symbols of this language. So Jung is good, Campbell is good. The way I started is with Dictionary of Symbols by Tom Chetwynd. I was given this book when I embarked on my journey. I write about all this in my book, Where We Dreamed a Single Dream, where I went to Scandinavia, to Sweden. At the airport, my friends that helped me to feel comfortable with my spirituality, that were supporting me, the earliest people that were supporting me, they gave me this book as a going away present. While I was there traveling, I used to open this book and go, God, I can't understand any of this, because it didn't relate to my dreams, but it did. I didn't understand that the dreams, the symbols in my dreams were archetypal. That is to say, mythological. So you have trees in all mythologies of humanity. So you have in Norse mythology, the Yggdrasil, the big tree, that's the cosmic axis, that's the axis mundi. Yeah, at the apex is the eagle, and at the bottom is in the middle live the people, and on the bottom is the dragon, and there is a squirrel that communicates between the dragon and the eagle at the top. So the squirrel is another symbol of a mediator or intuition that moves between up and down, between your personal unconscious and collective unconscious, between your inner self and your ego. And out of this mystic poetry comes. So there are trees in every culture. In ancient, in classical Greece mythology, the oracle of Dodona, which was associated with Zeus, had huge oak trees. So the oak is another symbol of a tree. The tree mediates between the two dimensions. It mediates between this visible reality and the invisible reality of the spirit, because above tree is composed of two parts: the above part that we see with the branches, with the trunk and the branches, and the roots. And the roots were symbolic of going inward into the afterlife, the invisible part. Yeah, for instance, there has been found an old ancient oak in England somewhere. I can't remember which part, on a shore. Because the sea has approached the land a lot more, it's encroached into the land a lot more, so that would have been a sacred place by the beach, which is another symbol of the mediating between dimension of the visible and the invisible, seeing being the unconscious or afterlife. And the tree, the oak, was inside a grove, which was, there was a circle around not trees but piers around the circle, and the tree was placed upside down, so its roots were sticking out. So you see, that's a place of worship. So you see where the unconscious is coming into this life. So the tree is the mediating medium, the intuition that brings the two dimensions at the center. So that's another way of looking at it. So that's what I'm talking about here. So you have a symbol. You don't interpret it just what you associate with it. You have to go deeper, you have to go wider, and then you have to use the collective unconscious, the mythological symbols, to understand what the soul is actually communicating to you. Yeah? So let's continue. So you have found the symbol, you want to know what it means, then you go to books, you go to an index. There's an index here. Yeah, there's an index, and this is the tree of the Dictionary of Symbols by Tom Chetwynd. This is how I started, by the way. So you got an index and you find the tree. You might find a page that describes the tree, and there will be other links to similar symbology, because everything is interconnected in mythology and archetypally, you know. So and off you go. One thing leads to another, another thing leads to another, another thing leads to another, and you make these intuitive connections, and that's how intuition activates. Because you're fascinated by it, you're curious, and you want to know, and you keep going on this journey, on this quest, following this invisible trace until you find the source, and the source is the center. You know, the circle with the tree in the center. That's what it is. And then words will come. You'll get messages, you'll get visions, you get dreams, archetypal dreams like I do. Or, you know, you start to paint things like the one behind me, you know, she's the feminine, she's at the center. What's the center? The feminine is at the center. The core of the center is your intuition. Yeah. So you have found your you found your symbol, the dream, and then you're following its clues into an index, and then finding the right page, you will also find a clue, which will lead to another index reference, which leads to another clue, and so on. I was just saying that, right? Following this invisible trace until one day the symbol you are contemplating becomes transparent to its reference, to what is actually being communicated to you through the symbol. Who is communicating it to you through the symbol, transparent to its reference. The veil of culture lifts. The veil of culture lifts. The veil of programming, of not understanding. You know, the personal unconscious lifts, and then the collective, the mythological comes out. Not what you associate, but what it really means to the soul. That's what comes out. And you see through your open eye of the heart, your intuition, the all in us all. Do you remember my dream? The dream of my ex-wife's dream when she climbed to the mountain, to the top of the mountain. First she met the bush, the burning bush, the silent bush. Then she made it up to the top of the mountain, and there at the top of the mountain there was a circle, a ring of extinguished volcano around which people stood, of all nations, of all colors, of all traditions, holding hands and looking inward. They're all in us all. When you find the center, you're not there it's not longer about your own personal unconscious. It's about us. The feminine is not about you as a specific, personal person. You belonging to this tribe, to this culture, to this religion, to this tradition, this language, this geographical location. But it's all about us. It's all interconnected. There's just one humanity and one country, and the country is Earth. We are all. Underneath the personal unconscious, the collective unconscious is all interconnected. There's just one story, the story of the recovery of the soul, which is at the center, at the circle. You see? So when she went up there, she found out that she wasn't alone. She was part of all of humanity. And that's very, very important to understand, that all in us all. That's when you put the books away and find that what you were looking for, the source, was not as you thought, only to be found somewhere out there in books and gurus, but it's always is within you. And this is the dance of life. That's right. Once you find that the source is not outside of you, what you have been taught, what we have been taught for centuries and millennia, really. And by our religions, by our, we're looking at the Old Testament, the Jewish religion, then later Christian, and then Islam. But it's actually all within you. It's all within you. Like the dream, like I've shared with you, the dreams, like Jung has shared with you the dream, or Campbell dreams, or even Black Elk, when he went to the apex of the mountain. And what did he find there? He didn't find his own, the story wasn't just about himself or his tribe. What he found is that it is the tree of one mother and one father, around which the hoops of all the nations were interconnected. Yeah, that's very, very important to say in this time in our history, because we still very much divide ourselves. You know, the West is the exceptional nation. The US calls itself, the Americans call themselves the exceptional people. The Jewish people call themselves the chosen people. You know, we had the supreme people during World War II in Germany. So we still have this terrible ideology and psychology of the split mind, really. Because if you insist that you're superior, that you're exceptional, that you're better than others, it shows a split in your psyche from the all in us all, from the reality, from the consciousness, from the reality, from understanding that there is not just me and to hell with others, that we are all in it together. We are all just one humanity, just different colors, different traditions, but underneath all this is just one single consciousness, or collective unconscious, or spirit, or soul, or God or goddess, whatever you want to call it, intelligence, energy consciousness, and that underlines everything, not just human, but plant and animal, planet Earth, universe, everything is interconnected. This is just a unique embodiment of the same thing, just another reference of the same thing. You are just another reference, a unique reference of this mystery, and so is everybody else. So this is very, very important to stress at this time, especially now. I can see this being what should we call it? This is all being brought out, for instance, in the U.S. elections, in the U.S. election cycle. You know that Americans think of themselves as a superior, exceptional people, and they should have the right to rule over others or impose their way of living on others. It's not true. So that's why we have this. The multipolar world is coming into being. Countries that are not competing with each other, like the BRICS, but are cooperating with each other. So that's very, very. We are living in a very, very important time in history right now, where the old Western, colonial oppression of others is really coming to an end. And the oppressed are now coming together and forming a whole new reality on this planet, an interconnected reality. Not power over, but power with. Yeah. So what have we got now? 17. Okay, I'll share with you a few poems that I have written over the years that came out of this. I'll show you a book. This is The Flight of the Wild Gender by Joseph Campbell. This is how I read. When something comes to me, this is how I look how it is underlined, and then out of this comes poetry. I find words, because what happens is with the when you're working with on the mythological level, with the collective unconscious, on the archetypal level, it speaks to you, and the inner voice, the intuition says, or your soul, your inner self says, this is important. This is what I'm talking about. This is my stuff. Talk about this, write something about this. Help people to understand that underneath their personal problems, personal unconscious, I am here, and I refer to everyone, not just to them, not just to you, but to all people, all animals, the whole universe. But anyway, I'll read you a few poems of mine, which came out of this dance of life, this finding the wholeness, the personal unconscious, the collective unconscious, then you're whole. The personal and the archetypal, then you're whole. Otherwise, you're just repeating the same old story, just writing about you, me and my cat. It's not it's fine, but it's not really. You need to go deeper and wider to connect to the intuition, and then something happens. The symbols, the words, the things are going to refer to us, not just to you. And the way that they refer, the way that they speak in symbols and metaphors is mythological. Yeah? So, here we go. Having rediscovered your intuitive center, the eye of the heart, do not look over your shoulder, live from it. So that's what it's really all about. You're recovering the center. The center is been preoccupation of humanity for thousands of years, millions, if not million. You know, in every rock painting, the ancient rock paintings, if you look at the Paleolithic, you have this preoccupation of, sometimes people will paint a spiral, sometimes there would be maybe a symbol of a, that I saw just recently on walls, on caves, for instance, that I think it might have been in India or in Australia, I can't remember which country, but there were figures of humanoid figures, and the head was a spiral to the center, and out of this, around this were sparks or light emanating. So we have been preoccupied with finding the center forever. In caves, for instance, in the Dordogne, in the Paleolithic caves in southern France, northern Spain, you have people painting the hands onto the wall, you know, blowing paint over, and then they're trying to touch the other side over the wall, the mysterious side, the spirit side, out of which everything comes. So they're trying to find that center. So you had magical animals that are, you know, animals. I was going to talk about animals today, the magical animals, but I changed my mind to talk about this because this is very important. But animals were one of the very first images of finding that center, because animals live intuitively. They are connected to the center, and they live like that. We have lost this. Most of the Western way of living is very rational, very busy, you know, very out there, projecting completely onto society. You find looking for the meaning outside of yourself in society. Job, kids, new phones, another trip, another something new to buy, another lover, whatever it is, you're still projecting outside of yourself. That's the way of living in our Western society. It wasn't always like this. It's just the way it's developed. So the whole point is to find that center, you know, that spiral that comes into the center, you know, and it's the spiral, like I said, with the image that I found on the cave, the humanoid. The human wasn't all that important, but the head was a spiral with light coming out from around its periphery, because it's within you. That's what head means. Head means your thoughts, your inner visions, your dreams, your visions, your intuitions, your synchronicities. That's when you start to pay attention to these, you will find your center. Yeah, and the center, like I said, is mythological. It's not just personal. So there's another one that I wrote. Look, there is no such thing as your inner world. I was just talking about that, right? Not personal, unconscious. There is only the one and the same for us all, the single inner world, and your everyday reality is a reflection of how well or how poorly you understand that numinous dimension. The numinous dimension I'm talking about is collective unconscious, mythological dimension. Everything when it speaks to you, it speaks in symbols of mythology. And the story is always the same, regardless of which people, which culture, which religion. The recovery of your center and the soul within it. And the core of the soul, core of the center is intuition. Okay, what are we on time? 23. Okay, so we've got a few more minutes. I'll read you a few more. I bore you with, hopefully, you know, inspire you to write your own something that is more deeper and more meaningful, more something that speaks to us all, not just to you, but speaks to us all. And you will see when it speaks to others, because they will react. Yeah. Through our own direct inner experience of the divine, we become like the poets and talented shamans, interpreters of the feminine mystery of the eternal ideas. Exactly. You know, would become, because the inner voice, with the mystic poetry, when you start to write this, it speaks to others. You start to, and when they read and when they react, it reactivates their own center, which is mythological or archetypal, and the symbols from there start to speak to them. The language of the inner voice starts to speak to them. The inner voice can speak to you in everyday life as well. You know, don't travel on this road, don't trust this person, don't eat this food, or whatever. But the deeper you go, the more archetypal it becomes, the more mythological. It speaks then to everybody, and it activates their own center so that they can find that center and become whole, the union of the personal and the collective unconscious as one. The psyche. The psyche is in two dimensions, like I said. The masculine, which is your personal part, and the feminine, which is your collective part, the intuitive part. And it speaks in its own symbols and metaphors. Yeah? So we've got a bit more time. I'll read you one more. Okay, this is something I wrote. I've written this. I've written many versions of this, but I'll read you to it. You see, people travel to Mecca, to Jerusalem, or to Benares, to the mountains of Nepal, or even all the pagan sites in Europe where a stream or a cave dedicated to the goddess is to be found, one geographical place after another, and yet the only place where you truly find not only peace of mind, healing and holiness, but more important, that which you are really looking for, a direct mystic experience to be of the feminine mystery of the divinity you really are, the soul, is never found in another place or person, for it is already in the sacred garden in your heart, waiting to be awakened into consciousness within you. This is exactly what I was just talking about. Yeah? There's a longer version of this. People are going into, I've seen people traveling to amethyst caves and so on, but they never travel into their own inner cave to become whole. So the wholeness is, you know, union of your ego and yourself, but the self is not personal. It speaks its own language. It speaks the language of whole of humanity, the mythological language of whole of humanity. Yeah? So we've got another, let's see if I've got another one. Yeah, and I'll probably finish here because what have we got? Yeah. Okay. When will you finally come out of the unconscious and reactive masses and join us, the mad fools, the magicians and witches, marginalized poets and artists, the mystics, the knowers, join the autonomous, intuitive rebels? Exactly. When will you come out of the masses and join us? When will you finally be free and whole and autonomous, like we used to be? When will you? So that you can finally know that there is no superior people, not chosen people, or exceptional people, you know, but there's just people. And underneath all that is just this one story of the center, finding the center and becoming whole, the personal unconscious, the collective unconscious, your own ego and the mythological part, your masculine part and your feminine part, the divine feminine, the collective part of all of humanity, finally rejoining and coming as one. Okay? So that's what I wanted to talk to you about today, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.